Were you able to reach a conclusion as to whether or not the defendant in this case, Jose Soto Escalera, is the biological father of Josiah Wise?
Yes, I was.
What was your conclusion?
So the DNA profiles from the child, baby Wise, and the mother, Tania Wise, were compared with that of the alleged father, Jose Soto Escalera. The DNA profile from Jose Soto Escalera is consistent with that required of the child's biological father.
That was Wayne Walker Jr., who's actually a criminalist at the Indian River Crime Lab. In his testimony yesterday in day 2, confirmed that the defendant, Jose Soto Escalera, was in fact Josiah Wise's biological father. He is currently facing the death penalty for allegedly taking the life of his former mistress, Tania Wise, who was 8.5 months pregnant at the time of her death. Day 2, and we are continuing the testimony of Christopher Newman. In the previous video, we saw how Jose was interviewed by police. He stated that he had nothing to do with Tania, that Tania had dated his nephew because it was like a neighbor's son. They just called him nephew. That he had nothing to do with her other than the fact that her son would come over to his house to play with his son because they were about the same age. That is it. He had nothing to do with her. Yet he's the biological father of this child. And they talk about the fact that during the police interview, that's when they learned that he was married. And again, they had 4 boys. And she didn't have 4 boys with him, but he had a total of 4 boys. And during the interview, they also shared that they make it a point to contact any and everyone possibly involved in the case. When they spoke to him, they had already spoken to others who had given some type of testimony that involved him. They went through his phone as well as his wife's phone and Tania's phone, which brings us into the next witness. The next witness, I'm going to call her Kelly D because her last name is quite long, and she is actually an FBI special agent cell phone analyst. And she talks a little bit about her experience and how these cell phone towers track you from beginning to end. That depending if you live in a rural area, you'll have less towers than, for example, Manhattan, which is going to have towers upon towers, but it'll automatically connect you with the tower that's going to give you the best service. Why does that matter? Well, they evaluated the phones. Keep in mind that Jose stated that the night that she died, he was in his home fixing a battery. I believe it was for a motorcycle for his friend. However, the cell phone towers in this picture show that around the same time that she was close to her house, so was he. Around the same time that the crime happened and the area that it happened, he was in that area as well. They were even contacting each other that night. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that when they're showing this, they're showing that the wife is calling him also throughout essentially when they assume that she was murdered. And that is why also his cell phone was pinging. Now, they did state additionally that they wanted to go ahead and check all of the phone records, check the text messages, and that they willingly turned those over before a subpoena or even a warrant was required. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that between 8:25 and 8:44, when she is moving, they also see that his cell phone is also moving along. It seems to be pinging off of different towers, but it shows them along the same route. Let's go into the next witness. That is going to be Donna Carmichael. She is the retired crime scene supervisor for St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. Now, what Donna Carmichael shares is simply the pictures of the pickup truck, and she breaks down how they actually went ahead and took tons of evidence from the pickup truck. So they took photographs from the outside, from the inside. They asked her, why do you do that? And she said, well, we take pictures on the outside just to see if there's any type of damage, anything we should be concerned about, anything that stands out to us. They take pictures inside the truck throughout pretty much every crevice, and also any type of swabs. They swabbed the buckle, they swabbed the seatbelt. They swabbed different areas, especially the metal, because they can't remove the metal. They did that in the parking lot of the sheriff's department. Keep in mind that he actually allowed them to search his vehicle without a warrant. He did it unwillingly. The next witness is going to be Wayne Walker Jr., which is the criminalist, which you guys heard from in the beginning. Now, what's interesting about all of this, and I actually apologize for leaving it out, is the detective Christopher Newman was asked about other men that were also tested for DNA. So they do cover that as well. There was a man by the name of Bradley Rodriguez. There was another man by the name of Mark Burke. I believe there was a Giovanni Alvarez Alvarado. Those three were also swabbed for DNA in addition to Jose Soto. And all of them were negative. They were not the father, but Jose Soto tested positive. They explain how they take the DNAs. They have to, of course, take the DNA of the mother, take the DNA of the father, or the different people that they're testing to be able to separate the mother's DNA from the rest of the people being tested. He also shared the only people that have identical DNA are going to be identical twins. That is the only way you have that. Also, one of the other things that the defense asked the detective was the fact that Bradley Rodriguez was at one point living with her and her mom. He was kicked out, and then you had Mark Burke, who also had a difficult relationship with her as well. And there was another man that actually dropped her off at her house supposedly the night of the murder, and there was someone else that picked her up, which was Giovanni Alvarado. At least they were supposed to meet up that particular night. So all of them were tested, came back that it was Jose Soto's child. Let's go into the next witness. Next witness is William Halsman. He is the former DNA analyst from DNA Labs International, and he simply shares that he received swabs from the passenger headrest as well as a blood sample of Tania Wise. They use that to create a DNA profile, and in that profile, he shares that 2 areas were tested. One area shows 3 individuals, one being a male, and that Tania could not be excluded. And then the second sample is Tania is confirmed, and then a male and additional individuals. So that was kind of their part. And then the defense asked, can you have DNA that is old and test it? He was like, yes, I mean, that happens. Keep in mind that what they're trying to say is that she was in his vehicle back in March, where he shared that him and his wife had picked her up. For whatever reason, they had gone to Cheddar's. Now, the state recalled Donna Carmichael because now we learn how the prosecution knew what Jose had planned and why he was trying to get rid of Tania. First and foremost, Donna Carmichael was a crime scene supervisor in St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office back in 2018. She's now retired. She shares that on August 25th was the first time that they searched the truck that belonged to Jose, and he actually consented to that search. However, they towed the car or the truck back on August 27th because they got a search warrant. On August 31st, they went through the vehicle again. They gave it back to Jose on September 10th. They got another search warrant. And at this point, on the 24th, they did the final search. This is where we find out how the prosecution had all of the audio breaking down what his plans were with Tania. She received an SD card, this crime scene supervisor. She received an SD card on August 27th from Waste Pro, the company that he was working for. Keep in mind, he was a garbage truck driver. He drove for Waste Pro, and apparently all of those trucks are equipped with multiple cameras and audio. She said that at that point she had to turn it over to the FBI so they could in turn enhance the audio. That leads me into the next witness. His name is David Mingarelli. He is the digital forensics examiner for the FBI. Now, he shares that he's worked for the Miami office for about 16 years, and his role is that he collects and processes digital evidence such as phones, thumb drives, video surveillance, laptops, and he's also trained in video processing and enhancing audio. He shares that on August 28th, he was asked to process a video from Waste Pro's garbage truck for August 24th of 2018, which was the day of her death. The video, he states, was initially in 1-minute intervals. They just have a lot of recordings. So he had to take that information and kind of put all of it together and enhance the audio. He shares that what they do is that they extracted extra noise because if you listen to the video, there was like a fan clicking noise. So he isolated it and duplicated it so that way he used it so that the video would then remove that clicking noise. After he processed the video for the 24th, the state then asked him to process additional dates: August 21st, the 23rd, the 25th, and the 27th. And again, he shares that it's the same process. with the clicking noise. It recognizes it. You let it know what's the noise you want it to remove, and it does it for all of the videos. The defense then asked him if any files were missing. He said that yes, initially when he got the first batch, there were some missing because the sheriff's office did not kind of merge the files correctly. But once he recognized that there was some minutes missing, he reached out to the St. Lucie Police Department and they merged it all correctly. So now let's go to Adolfo Sabelli, I believe is the way his last name is pronounced. He is the ops manager at Waste Pro. He shares that he knew, of course, who Jose Soto Alvarado is. He handles everything in relation to the trucks. They also talked about Eric Alvarado. Eric Alvarado was Jose's helper. He didn't have a commercial driver's license, so he wouldn't have been allowed to drive at all. And they also asked him what would happen if you found out he tried to drive, and he said, well, he would have been terminated immediately. They assigned truck number 1363 to Jose Soto at the time. This is where he breaks down the cameras. He states that all of the trucks are outfitted with cameras and audio. There's 4 cameras total. The first one faces out forward. So essentially anything the driver is looking at, that's your first camera. Second camera is inside of the cab, closer to the driver to kind of see what's going on. The third camera is in the back of the truck, kind of where they hop on and off as they're throwing the trash in. He said that they, did that, just in case someone got hurt, if there's an accident. And then another one outside on the driver's side looking backwards. So whatever the driver can see on his rear view mirror, that camera picks up. They asked him, why did you guys have these cameras in the truck? And he shares that it's standard now for safety, but initially it helped them because if, for example, someone rear-ended them and wanted to sue, stating that we had slammed on the brakes, we could look at the cameras. Also, they want to watch the driver because if the driver is eating, that's not something that is allowed. They asked him if it's easier to hear the driver versus the person that's on the passenger. He said yes, because it is closer to them. They asked him how often he checks the cameras. He said it's a constant thing. He goes, sometimes it's multiple times a day. It could be, there's certain days that they may not check it. There may not be a need. He says about 5 times a week. Anytime that someone calls and says that their trash didn't get picked up, that there was an accident, something needs to be checked, they're constantly checking those cameras. They then ask him, what was Jose to him? Was he a friend? He goes, no, he was an employee, maybe an acquaintance, they're employees of mine. And they asked him if he had any issues with him, and he said no.
And I'm not the only one. She's pregnant from that little asshole that works there. She says it's mine, supposedly. I can't take chances. I lose everything. No, I am telling you the truth. If something happens to me, you already know. I'm going to blow so she doesn't talk. I have to do it, Eric. I have no other choice. I'm going to lose everything. What I need is someone to drive me. That's it. Unintelligible. But nobody knows. Everyone is talking. She unintelligible. She fucked Eric. She fucked this one. She fucked. These are rumors. That's the point. She was nagging that she was pregnant by him. She says it's not his. If my wife found something out like that, my God, I lose everything, bro. Unintelligible. Brief pause. I have his spot. I already have her. I'm telling you the truth. I've already prepared her well. I told her that there are some people that want to pay her because she asked me, will you go with me because I don't know them.
That was an FBI agent in partnership with the FBI language translator who were going over the transcript from the SD card that Waste Pro provided from inside of their dump truck. The first person, starting in day 3, only did half a day, Christopher Newman, they brought him back. They asked him, where did the victim live? They asked him how far it was from a distance from another home who had surveillance. 4 houses down, that was it. Then they introduced Norma Campos. Again, she is an FBI language translator. She states that they're called linguistics. She shares that she speaks daily in Spanish. She has family members that do not speak English. Additionally, she worked as a contractor for the FBI for 10 years, translating prior to being hired permanently. Her job is to help special agents interpret videos, interviews, interrogations, sometimes in the field when they need to be. She also translates documents, body cam footage, anything that would be in the Spanish language or that agent does not understand what they're stating. Now, she was the person that interpreted the SD card. Keep in mind that Waste Pro, Jose Soto's workplace, turned over multiple videos where apparently he was unaware that he was being recorded inside of the truck when he planned her death. In fact, there is so much they go over. It's over 2 hours of transcripts from before her death and even after her death. He pretty much plans it with his nephew, which a lot of people are asking, has he been arrested? I don't have any details about him at all. But with his nephew, he stated why he was going to do it. The fact that, even though she wasn't threatening him, even though he was laughing at the fact that this other guy thought that was his child, he was letting it be, but he just couldn't risk losing it all. He also even stated in these videos that nobody would miss her. Nobody would look for her. She had so many different issues with different men. Somebody was going to think that they had done something to her, and it wouldn't be him. He even said, everybody knows I only go to my house. If I'm not with my wife, I'm with you. I don't even go anywhere. I don't even do anything. No one is ever going to suspect anything. He even talks about the fact that night he was going to get rid of all the clothes, bleach everything. He had a whole plan as to how to make it all happen. Even asking his nephew of different ways that maybe he should take her life, which one he felt would be more effective. The nephew also stated that he was concerned because she has an 8-year-old boy, and he was like, I don't feel bad for him because she's never with him. She's always leaving that boy with her mother and is always gone for 2 to 3 days. So guess what? If she disappears for a couple days, a couple weeks, no one is going to look for her. No one is going to care because she's never cared about her son. So pretty much showing that he was trying to frame someone else. He even thought about setting her up to come in that other man's vehicle and then doing it that night. So that way it would show that she was in that person's vehicle. I believe his name was Bradley. Also, they then presented transcript from after her death where he's now panicking. And he's like, no, they're trying to set me up. I knew this was going to happen. He even called his mom. He told his mom, if they ask you anything, tell them I was at your house after 8 o'clock. No, mom, they're interrogating me. I don't understand what's going on. Just tell them this, that, and the other. He involved his mother and his nephew in this. And again, this was recordings from 8/21, 8/25, and 8/27. She died on 8/24. 8/25, they had already discovered her body. And 8/27 was just a couple of days after. So he is having that conversation openly about him being interrogated, about the fact that police have already gone to his house, about the fact that his car has been searched, and he feels like he's being set up. Which was interesting because just a couple of days before, he was planning it completely with his nephew. And apparently it seems like his nephew had something to do with someone else's death because he even asked him, how did you do it? How did you get away with it? I just need to make sure, I don't get caught. I'm going to lose everything. And even the nephew at one point, is she threatening you? And he's like, no, I just need to make sure because she's the only one that knows that she's stating it's my child. I can't risk it. The next person and the final person that testifies, her name is Tamara Carreno Marquez. And she is the one that just lives a door down from Jose, and it shows his truck that night leaving at 15 p.m. That is the end of day 3. What was interesting about all of this is that defense questioned the translation and said that the original draft said something different, and the lady said there's always going to be a draft, but then when the next person takes it over, it's like an audit, and you are more, your final draft or what you come up with, that is the final utilized in court. That is what's considered the legal translation, not what someone wrote in a draft. She goes, that's why there is always a 2-person check when it comes to translations. So tomorrow they're going to go back to day 4. They expect that the prosecution will do closing statements. If not tomorrow afternoon, it'll probably be in the morning.